Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, talking Dune right now. We've got a Rogue review. Obviously, Dune dropped last week to pretty impressive box office numbers, especially considering HBO once again cannibalized their own numbers by debuting it also on HBO Max. However, it also, at the time that I snagged this article, scored more viewers than Zack Snyder's Justice League. So it's doing both well in theaters and it's doing well on HBO Max. The reviews for Dune have been extremely positive, with some calling the film a masterpiece. Given the reported price tag of $165 million, however, they were worried that Part 2 wouldn't be a guarantee. However, it was announced today that there will indeed be a Part 2.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
You don't think
You
so?
don't buy what?
I don't buy that they weren't planning on doing a part 2. Like, it was all contingent on the money.
I think they held on to it until to the release in order to help propel views and continued viewing of the film. I agree.
Right. Because I mean, you don't just like, pull a rabbit out of the hat and just come up with exactly 2 years, and on this particular date we will premiere the next movie. It just doesn't work that way. So It's a little too quick, but I don't mind. It's fine. If you're going to pull that kind of gimmickry, that's the kind of gimmickry I'd like you to pull.
Yes.
So it's like, wait, we'll get it sooner than we speculated getting it. That's okay with me.
I guess we said, 2023?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
Same average between the Star Wars episodes.
Yeah.
Or most of your Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Which is a year less than the original Star Wars films.
Correct.
Period.
That is true. Which is agonizing, to be honest with you.
So,
even when I was a kid, I remember how agonizing that was.
Full disclosure for you gentlemen. Not only did I watch the full movie on HBO Max, but I watched part of it, the beginning part, on my phone. And I know, sacrilege.
Did you watch it fully on HBO Max on your TV first?
No. I have no time for that. I was like, I got to get into this. It was a little slow at first. So I actually did 20 minutes on TV, then 20 minutes on the phone in a separate viewing. And then I did, from that separate viewing, I went right upstairs to my TV after like 20, 25 minutes of watching it on my phone, went to the TV and just finished it out. So really in 2 sessions, 2 different methods. And as I've said in the past, if you're going to stream it, if you're going to put these movies on streaming services, I get to watch them any way, which way I want to. And I make no apologies for it.
Hassan, how many times have you watched it?
I've only seen it once.
Really?
Oh, because
I watched it twice.
I'm going to see it in the theater, so I'm not going to watch it so many times that I'm desensitized to it by the time I see it in the enormity of the IMAX, whatever.
I found that anything I see on an IMAX screen, it doesn't matter what I've seen it before or not, it's still always just so kind of all encompassing and just sort of massive that it's impressive whenever I see it. So
look, I will admit that I was a little afraid of the film when just to sit down and watch it. It came out. I had it had leaked online and various sites, stuff like that, about maybe a week before the film.
Sure.
And I didn't watch any of those. And then it of course it premiered Thursday night, so it was available from, I think, about something like 12 midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning, Thursday or Friday morning, all the way into, and I didn't watch it until sometime into Friday afternoon, even though I wasn't watching anything else. I wasn't pressed to watch anything else. So I was very cautiously optimistic about it. I was excited about it, but I didn't want to.
Whoa. What did you just use the E word?
Yeah.
You were excited for it.
I'm not visibly excited about anything.
Sorry.
I was very, let's not use excited. I was enthusiastic about it. I like the thing I'm happiest about is that, in spite of my love for the David Lynch version, I didn't watch this with a scrutinizing glare, to see if it could match. I was resigned to the fact that there were going to be aspects about the David Lynch version that they were never going to match. And then there was going to be a lot of things about this movie that were going to surpass the David Lynch version. And it's exactly what happened. And I'm happy I was able to like watch it without any kind of chip on my shoulder, anything like that. The book is a monster. It's really difficult to adapt. It's a lot of people have said it's difficult to read because it's written in an old-fashioned omniscient style. So there are very few point of view characters, and there are several hundred point of view characters, but they all have their point of view at almost the same time. It's a very old style. It's like pre-Dickens kind of style of writing. So it bugs a lot of people. It's a very difficult book. So there was a very good chance it's going to be a disaster. Or it was going to be so dumbed down, it was going to be so minimal that it would look really good, but it would be soulless in its own way. So I know Villeneuve's work is not typically soulless, but he does have a very minimalist approach to things, and he's very all his stuff is very subdued, and a
little cold.
Cold. I would definitely. That's excellent. And not so much stiff, but as the word that keeps coming to mind is the wrong word, but it's slow. Like he's very methodical about like how he's gonna explain things. He's gonna tell things to you. So in some ways he's perfect for Dune, but in other ways you could get lost in the weeds a lot. And I have some fans of the book and fans of the Lynch movie who just absolutely disliked all the stuff that was quote unquote dumbed down. So I mean, you're not going to please everybody, but I mean, it was. I thought it was amazing. So
I gotta be honest, my initial take,
in spite of the fact that I somehow managed to avoid watching it on my phone. I don't know how I did that, but
that's terrible.
I managed to do that.
This is democratize the process.
I deprived myself of that pleasure.
You kind of hit a nail too for me. So I don't know anything about both the David Lynch movie or the book. I was never a Dune fan. I know I'd heard rumors of Dune. I'd heard rumblings of Dune, but it was never something that I was immediately drawn to as a Ute. Nor later on in life. I did manage to see a still shot of the movie. Apparently, someone's holding a pug while screaming. It's pretty.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. Sorry, Patrick Stewart. Right, exactly. Patrick Stewart was holding a pug, and I saw that on Facebook. That was
the Atreides pug is an important aspect of that film.
Yeah, but it makes for a great meme. Either way.
Yeah.
So. But what I managed to get out of this version, and this is a huge, in its favor moment for me, is the fact that I could tell that it is a dense story. I mean, it's got a Game of Thrones like rich history, or Lord of the Rings like rich history. You can tell the weight of how much history it has and how much backstory, and you can only imagine what it must have been like to read that book and or to write that book, right? But they managed to tell it in a way, Villeneuve managed to tell it in a way that was not dumbed down, but just very concise. There is this race of beings on this planet terrorizing this race of beings. They leave because the Emperor tells them to leave. This other race of beings now comes in. A race that left, very upset, have to come back. I mean, in fact, the plot summary kind of says it, and it's very succinct. Set in the distant future, Dune tells the story of Paul Atreides, whose family accepts control of the desert planet Arrakis as the only producer of a highly valuable resource. Control of Arrakis is highly contested among the noble families. After Paul and his family are betrayed, the story explores themes of politics, religion, and man's relationship to nature as Paul leads a rebellion to restore his family's control of Arrakis. That's the
not
synopsis.
Quite correct, but okay.
What's that?
It's not quite correct, but okay.
Yeah, well, that is the official synopsis.
That's fine. I mean, it's not. They're not only are they dumbing it down, but they're misleading and probably doing it on purpose.
Well, that's
but
good.
that comes from a knowledge of the story.
Sure.
That's not. It's not wrong. It's just not 100% correct.
Sure. And that's the thing. So they were able to tell most of that synopsis very quickly, to a point where look, beginnings of movies can be slow if there's important information everyone needs to know. Obviously, there was a lot of important information I needed to know, being a complete newbie for this. But they managed to do it in a way that was palatable.
What's kind of funny though? There are scenes in this movie that are not in the David Lynch movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So theoretically, there's more stuff in this movie than the David Lynch movie. It's not so like, whereas it is, some of the dialogue is simplified, but extensively, and there is no inner monologue of any of the characters, which is a big criticism of the original film. In other words, you can hear what they're thinking.
Sure, yeah,
you have voiceovers of people what they're thinking. There are things that are only in the 3-hour Alan Smithy cut of the original Dune that are actually do show up in the Denis Villeneuve version. So there's actually more stuff in this movie than in the David Lynch film. In spite of the fact that the David Lynch film is the whole book, theoretically, and this movie is only half of the book.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird thing. I think one of the things that get me is that when you watch it, you're like, this is pretty much beat for beat the original film, with the exception of some scenes, some components in it that were thrown in for exposition, that are in the David Lynch film that are not in this. But from pretty much after the first 10 minutes of the David Lynch film, everything in this film and that is comparable to that film, almost beat for beat. So the fact that people say I understand this better than the David Lynch version is a little probably disingenuous. It's probably watching it with contemporary eyes, because there's really not that much more exposition in this, clarity of exposition in this, than there is in the David Lynch version. The unfortunate thing, and this is why you should probably from here on in speak to Steve about it, is because I am such a fanatic about the book. I can't honestly tell you whether or not this is a more palatable version for casual fans.
Sure.
Because I'm only watching it for, is everything that I need in this story, is everything I need to be adapted from that book in this story. And that's the extent of it. It's like kind of like the book readers of Game of Thrones versus people who are just watching it for the TV show. So it is what it is. Like I said, I think it's great, but I'd be interested to hear what was so confusing about the David Lynch version that is seemingly not confusing about this version.
Again, and Steve, I'm going to ask you where you fall in this conversation in 1 second. I've never seen the David Lynch version, so I couldn't even tell you. I'm saying as a Dune newbie, someone coming into this completely with no knowledge, but hearing that it is a complicated story, knowing the history of this getting to screen once and then getting to screen again, I didn't have any problems with it. Steve, where do you fall in your Dune knowledge? Were you a fan of the book, fan of the David Lynch film, or a complete new like?
So when I was a kid, I gobbled up everything science fiction wise as far as books go. I read the original 4 of 6 the Dune books. I read through God Emperor. I stopped there because God Emperor was work getting through, but I made it, and I felt that I'd completed them and then it was a number of years when the other books started coming out. So I am a tremendous fan of the Dune story. I loved the first book. And it was really interesting because I found myself thinking while I was watching this new version, and finding myself, I was watched it. Oh, first of all, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It's as visually arresting as you would expect a Denis Villeneuve movie to be, or adaptation of this to be. It's literally, if you could think of, if you've seen his other movies and you know what visually he is capable of, and you imagine him doing Dune, and Dune, you're gonna walk out of that theater and go, I got exactly what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
He delivers exactly what you want him to deliver. Now, what I had more questions about was, I've seen the David Lynch film multiple times. I've read the book once a long time ago. The thing I found most interesting watching it is I was trying to figure out is, like in your particular case, how someone with no knowledge of that world
mm-hmm.
is able to absorb everything coming at them cold, because I'm watching the movie, my brain's automatically filling in the gaps,
mm-hmm.
or my brain already knows who everybody is,
mm-hmm.
who the players are, where they're from, the relationship between the families. So I can sit back and I can throw the popcorn in my mouth and just enjoy visually soaking this version in.
No,
but
it's not, again, he pulled it off. It's a very easy to understand movie, and that's what I think. Obviously, look, there's some stuff, with the Messiah. Is he a Messiah or not? Is he going to his visions? What do they mean? Some of them sort of come true, some of them don't come true in the way that he sees them. Spoilers, everybody, if you haven't seen the movie, but it's on HBO Max. You can watch it on your phone. The scene where he's holding up his hand to the rock right before he's about to do the death duel, to me, I do have questions. Is that him seeing the future, a potential future, and being able to avoid it because of it? That's how I took it. Or is it just that was a vision that came to him, and that's a possible or a possible outcome? I don't know. Again, I took it as him being able to kind of see one potential outcome, and therefore being able to avoid it. Visions of Zendaya, the vision, and actually go back to the death duel itself. That character that he duels, his visions earlier, again, kind of speak that he is going to engage this
and be helpful. Correct.
Right, like he's going to engage, and this guy's going to help him, and I guess in a way maybe he did, but it just not.
He ends up helping him, but it's going to be. It's very esoteric in the sense that he learns that what the guy ends up helping him with, and it's not really a spoiler because we've already seen what happened.
Yeah.
What the guy ends up helping him with is understanding the depth of what it costs to use the power that he used in order to beat him in the duel, right? And then that's also the first person he kills.
Yep.
In something that's going to, no spoiler because it's already promised you that, something that's going to be a crusade that he's going to launch, in which case he's going to be the first of quite a few people who are going to be killed.
Sure. And we see that in the visions too. He sees himself.
Yeah, but to answer your question, the comment he made in the beginning of the film to the Reverend Mother, where she says, "Do the visions that you see come true?" And he says, "Some of them."
Yeah.
And then she says, "Well, you need to learn some more," right? So she's already telling him, if you're seeing visions that don't actually match up, then you're still not where you need to be.
Right.
In order to, you still haven't come of age into your fullness.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is like his mismatch or unreliable visions are just indicative of him not being. It's the same as Luke not being able to lift a rock. It's just he's not there yet.
Yeah.
And that's that's what he ends up learning from the guy. Also, like there's other stuff. I won't get into spoilers, but that there's ripple effects from that duel that if they decide to go through it, because they might not. But even the Kyle MacLachlan version sort of did that, sort of explain like the ramifications of doing that, but they didn't really go into depth of it either. It really is more in the book, so I won't bore you with that stuff, but he does end up learning a lot from Jameis. Is another very popular, a very famous character in the book, for that scene alone, just because he got killed, who he was and where he was when he died was important in the journey. of this particular character.
I did find it interesting to hear that people think that this version, I mean, I could understand, I guess, for people saying that this version makes things more clear than the Lynch version does, because I mean, you're spending 2.5 hours, which is longer than the theatrical release of the original Lynch film, and only slightly shorter than the Lynch extended version, the Smithy cut. But like you said, the Smithy cut, or I mean, it's that still telling the entire story, and this is still giving you half in almost the same amount of time. So I can understand why people think this one makes more sense. I mean, that, and I think the delivery method, I think that the Lynch version, the delivery, there's just so much going on, and it kind of bombards you if you don't know the story. And I think that he gives you everything you need, but people who know the material are going to more easily soak all of it in and kind of parse it all where it belongs, as opposed to, again, someone coming in cold. And I think that this new version gives you all the same material, but it gives you it at a much better pace, at a pace that maybe is more acceptable to more people are receptive to.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's funny you mentioned and Hassan, you mentioned it too. This is a part one, and there's no, deception behind it. I mean, it's Dune Part 1, right off the bat. The filmmaker's letting you know this is a part one. Yeah. This is probably where my criticisms of the film come in, and it's not a criticism necessarily of the film, but it's the way it went about executing this particular film in terms of splitting it up into part 1 and part 2. Now, I keep thinking back to like Quantum of Solace. To me, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace pick up exactly where, Quantum of Solace picks up exactly where Casino Royale left off. And to me, it threw me watching it because so much time had passed. Now, I know 2 years is a standard film passing in terms of Marvel films. I think, in the production meeting, we were talking about a number of films that, Lord of the Rings was even 3 years apart. The Star Wars films are 3 years apart. So why would 2 years make a difference? This particular film, though, unlike some of the ones that I just mentioned, I think fails to leave me feeling as if I had just consumed a meal, a finished full meal, and then there's a natural breaking point. The point of the film where I get very into it is when he's escaping, and I feel because he foreshadows Zendaya constantly in this film, the point where he finally meets her is not a resolution. It's almost, and I use this with Hassan in our production meeting. It felt like Attack of the Clones almost. It felt like, okay, great, this movie's really going. Like, I could have sat through another hour of this film right now and felt I would have gotten a more beginning, middle, and end, whereas I felt by the time this film ended, I was into it, so that's great. Yeah, I want to see the next part. But it didn't leave me saying, boy, well, I got a full meal out of this one as well. I felt not. I don't think it. I think it did itself a disservice in that sense.
I think that's more of a case of a victim of the source material and how it's laid out and paced as far as its story goes. Because I think that with the original story, all that exposition, all that explanation, everything is up front. And in the back end of this movie there's a lot more stuff happening, a lot more action sequences, a lot more stuff to come. But I think that without either time jumping or altering the storytelling method in a way that I think would really have thrown off Dune fans.
Sure.
I don't think that you could have really messed with the storytelling and getting to where you got to in this first piece. And I think that they found a good spot to stop. I think this is a good place.
And that's the thing. It could be. Yeah, it could completely work out to the point where I watch part 2. I fully remember enough of part 1. Because that's what happened in Quantum of Solace. We ended up going. My dad and I went to the theaters, and we're like, "Okay,
yeah." But you'll be able to see this on. This will be online and streaming.
He has a React for it. So
okay, all right.
Yes, but now you're asking me to do more homework. And what I would sit there and say is
Is
Avengers
it
Infinity
homework if
War.
you're entertained though? Is it like I don't understand the idea that it's homework if it's something that is entertaining you. Like if you're about to put money down on seeing the sequel, why would it be a chore to rewatch the original or
Maybe
to
I have
be
time to do it, and maybe I don't. I mean,
that's
Maybe you
unique
just
to
need to make sure
yourself
you
though.
remember everything
well, no,
about the
but
first
you
one.
know what? And that's what we'll see. We'll see if I do by that point. And like, put it this way: Avengers: Infinity War. Again, it gave me a beginning, middle, and end with a cliffhanger. We used Force Awakens as an example too. That was a beginning, middle, and end with a cliffhanger. So I walked away from there.
But I mean, here's the thing: you did in this film receive a beginning and a middle and an end.
You did.
Because the film explains to you in the beginning what's
Mhm.
going to happen. It tells you what's happening.
Mhm.
It tells you we're going to go from this place into this next place, and the next place we're going to go into is going to be really dangerous, and we may or may not be able to hold on to it. And we think there's something up, but we don't know exactly what's up, and we just have to keep our eyes open and maintain our vigilance. And the exact thing that they are worried is going to happen actually does happen. They end up losing.
Mhm.
They end up getting attacked in a sneak attack,
Mhm.
and most of them get wiped out, except for various key characters that managed to get away, and they're gonna, they're going off into the desert at the end of this to, theoretically get their revenge in the next movie. That's a beginning and a middle and an end from a wing of the story. That's a first act, and if you know a story is going to be broken up into two pieces, and there's going to be another part to it, then obviously the second part of the best of both worlds is going to explain to you how the
again,
Federation beats the Borg.
It could
you know?
be, it could be pulled off in a way where it's seamless, even with the gap of time in between. But my feeling emotionally, and I think I framed it this way: you can explain it to me, and my head can get it, but my eyes and my emotions after seeing this was not the same as other part ones. And again, I think Infinity War is a great example of that. I felt after the part one of Infinity War, there was a more definitive stopping point. Whereas in this film, again, I think it's because they tease Zendaya and her character so much to the point where just meeting wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm ready. Like, let's break right now. The battle sequence, again, maybe that's a testament to this film as well, too, is that I'm sitting there saying, I want more. Attack of the Clones is a memorable experience for me because unlike this film, which was great and handled great, the first 2 hours of Attack of the Clones, it was tough to get through. And then you have the sequence at the end where Yoda is battling and they get in, there's an actual clone war, and I remember this to this day. I'm like with my friends, and I'm like, oh, hold me back. Like, we're going to finally, oh my God, thank God I sat through 2 hours of Hayden Christensen's bad acting to get to this moment where now we can do it. And then the credits roll, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Shouldn't have seen the third one then.
Not to the same extent in this sense. Well, because it's Star Wars. Not to the same extent where I was miserable the first 2 hours of this movie. I wasn't. I was
enthralled. What are you trying to say then? What are you getting at then?
I'm saying,
like, what's the? I mean, is that how you felt about it? Do you feel like you're not going to be able to be, you feel like you're not going to be able to follow it for the next film? Because I'm got to tell you, what's about to happen in the next film, that's going to be the test of Villeneuve, because this was the easy part of the story.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I mean, if he gets through the next, everybody's giving him credit about being clear, but this is the most coherent part of the story. Once he gets out into the deep desert, it starts to get really 1965. Okay, so
is he going to have all the female characters pose like a shot?
I don't know if you should. I don't know if you should bother watching the next one if you're not going to be able to maintain any of the information that you got out of this.
I would actually argue, and this is to your point, Hassan, I would actually argue that your problem with this first half, Mike, is actually on you. I think because you know
most
that a second half well, I would just say because you went in knowing this is a first movie, and that there is a second part. Like, if you went into this and it had just said Dune on the title card and you didn't know that there was a second movie coming,
Well, then that's where I would want to disagree with you because he puts it on the title card. So I mean,
No,
by
I
doing
understand.
by doing that,
I
I mean,
understand.
there's no other reaction I can have. So there is, that's
Well, I mean, if that's how you feel, then I get what you're saying. But obviously, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong or to say obviously it's not happening because everybody loves it. I'm not going to give you one of those
think you're gonna have
really weak arguments like that. But I understand what you're saying, but I don't know how it can be avoided.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me
A
ask
lot
you
of
this question.
a lot of movies have to take a hiatus. I mean,
Sure.
all the Lord of the Rings movies kind of had a stop, an abrupt stop, and then a start again.
Yep.
And then, of course, with them, you only had to wait a year, but
Right.
it doesn't matter. I mean, you still have to wait. Like a wait is a wait, and you still have to be up on what you saw previously because there's no prologue, there's no epilogue or anything like that. There's no preview to catch you up on what you just missed if you didn't see the Fellowship of the Ring,
Sure.
or if you didn't see the Two Towers. So I mean, like the end of the Desolation of Smog or whatever ends with him about to burn a village, and it cuts the credits. It ends with a giant dragon about to kill
flying in
a whole bunch of people, and then it cuts, and then you have to come back in a year. Nice knowing you
next Christmas.
But
So
I mean,
you know
what's great about that though, and this will lead us into the final question that I had. Would this have been better served as a TV series? Now, Villeneuve's own comment on this is that would be like sailing a ship in a bathtub. Because he's just against the medium of TV, but
yeah, and that's his
That's his own personal peccadillo.
That's the thing. So
ignorance,
that's why I opened
towards
the question to
the
you guys.
possibilities.
Would this work as a TV show? And
it's already worked as a TV show. So I mean, I can understand him not wanting to retread that ground because everybody's forgetting about the miniseries,
right?
The Lord of the the Dune miniseries that came out. That was highly successful. That was highly appreciated to such a point that the Sci-Fi Channel commissioned a sequel to it. So there was so they actually did adapt, and
they went further.
It's the only people who ever tried to tackle this material who adapted beyond the book of Dune, and went on to adapt, ironically, the next two books in the second miniseries, which is an unbelievable accomplishment. Well, and they were pretty spot on, actually, if you know those books as well. So, I mean, I see Villeneuve's point about. I mean, I understand like Steve said, those are his peccadillos about whether TV. He wants to be he's a movie director.
Yeah.
He wants to make epics. He wants big movies.
Right.
I think television can be just as big as movies now, and there are a lot of television shows that have proved it.
Right.
But if he wants to, he's also using the MCU formula where you can do a miniseries with movies nowadays, and that's basically what he wants to explore. And he can do $100 million episodes instead of $5 million episodes, which is big for television.
Did you see the comment by Denis Villeneuve after they made the announcement about the greenlighting part 2 that he actually sees this as a trilogy?
He's gonna do, but he only wants to stop at Messiah.
He wants to stop at Messiah, yeah,
which is weird, but okay.
Well, that's the time jump between the end of Dune, Messiah, and Children of Dune is massive.
Yeah, well, only 12 years.
Is it only 12 years?
Children between Messiah and Children of Dune is about 20 years, but no, 15, about 15 years because it's Children of 15.
Right.
So
I was thinking
this is
Children
part of the
and God
discussion.
Emperor.
Yeah, Children of Dune and God Emperor is 3,500 years. So that's different. Yeah.
So. Yes. Good
but
point.
I mean, the way he could have done a trilogy. It would have been great as a trilogy of the first 3 books. But since we broke this movie up and we don't know whether or not he's going to opt to break the second book up, which is a smaller book, which is smaller in event. Then I think it's the same. It's about 300 pages, so it's smaller in event and smaller in pages. But he might not have to break that book up. But if he decides to break that book into 2 pieces, then we're gonna have 4 movies and only 2 books adapted. So
yeah, Mike, do you find time to read? Do you make time to read?
If it ain't got pictures.
He's so proud of it.
If it doesn't have pictures, you read it.
If it ain't got pictures, I ain't reading it.
Okay. All right, never mind that.
I make comics for
Yeah.
a living. What do
I
you want
understand.
from me?
I understand that. I understand.
There you
that.
see,
So
you see what you just did,
I
Steve,
don't
where you
do it
said
for a
never
living,
mind.
but I still do it. But
You see how
I
you
get it.
said never mind? That's like my attitude 90% of the time taking the second chair.
I've
Like,
basically
all right,
broken
never
Hassan into a
I'm not even
mannequin
asking questions like
on
that.
most weeks. He just kind of sits there.
mind.
I literally couldn't just use the shot of Hassan that I have canned. That is a screenshot of him. I don't think anyone would notice.
right.
I would just be talking, and then eventually I could just use it. I could probably just use sound bites from previous episodes. No one would know. No
Not
one
for
would know.
nothing. Not for nothing, but my friends would notice.
That's true.
I don't think they would.
They comment extensively on the show.
I don't think they would.
No,
I think they would literally be like, "Wow, Hassan, that was your best show ever."
You don't know my friends. Oh, they've told me that.
Well, what do you guys
don't,
think?
Don't you worry.
Jump in, talk to us about Dune. We're on YouTube and Facebook. But coming up next, we have a very special guest. We're bringing him on to talk all about his brand new comic book that's on RogueMatter.com. It's our Rogue
Who we
Report
got?
with
Who we
Steve
got?
Hovecki.
Oh, that guy.
He's going
And
to
I'm
go
gonna do it
from
without
podcast
headphones.
commentator to creative when we come back. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.